Earlier this year, we were doing some deployment of MetaPool on Aurora. I thought for a moment that I discovered a flaw, and I started frantically taking out all the money before anyone else identified this vulnerability. After I spent like an hour cold sweating getting all the money out, and I thought I had like $400 million.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Supermoon Station. So Alejandro, tell us a little bit more about your personal journey. How did you start in crypto space?
I grew up in Venezuela, so very familiar with inflation, lack of trust in institutions. And through there, I guess I got really early into the Bitcoin vision and the promise of decentralization. And I didn't really get into crypto properly until I finished university around 2016, 2017. So it's just in time for the first Ethereum big wave up. I got a bit disappointed with Ethereum, lack of scalability, and took a couple of years off, 2018, 2019, until I found Near in 2020.
What brought you to Near?
So around 2020, I started doing, more research as I knew that there were a few modern blockchains coming around. I had a layer 1 thesis where it had to be a new modern blockchain built from scratch with all the lessons from Ethereum that would succeed. And Near was just one of the several blockchains that I started diving deep and playing with.
And is Near has a big ecosystem and community in Venezuela? I know that there are lots of adoption of cryptocurrencies in the payment sector, and you can actually go to shopping mall and use crypto to pay for purchases.
There was a lot of interest in the technology, but it was also interesting to see that a lot of people just heard about ways of potentially earning like an income through that. There was a lot of interest in mining at the time because we've got cheap electricity. So I see that as a potential failure of maybe people were not buying into the narrative of Ethereum to build a parallel decentralized institutions because you just couldn't. Either the technology was too raw. We actually weren't experiencing scalability pains back then. Like it was still cheap to use. Even though shortly after CryptoKitties did crash Ethereum, which should have been a red flag. But yeah, I think it was mostly the immediate need of, crippling inflation and lack of opportunities.
And what are you building now?
So at the moment, I am working with MetaPool. MetaPool is liquid staking on Near. We saw the need to have validators and to keep the network secure and decentralized as a core challenge and priority.
And if you are to explain liquid staking to people without tech background and people who are just joining crypto space, how would you explain it in very, very simple words?
Yeah, so Near is a proof of stake network, which means that you have to deposit some Near with validators to be able to process transactions. This would be seen maybe like a security deposit. So if the validator behaves maliciously, we will eventually have slashing. The only problem with this is that when you deposit your Near with validators, you receive about 10% returns, but then the Near is locked out for a long time. So with liquid staking, what we offer is the ability to delegate stake Near, but MetaPool is a layer that sits on top of validators so that we spread the Near across many validators, which helps with decentralization, and we give the user ST Near as a receipt of their stake Near, and now they can access the world of DeFi. And
lots of people believe Near can actually have three, like scalability, transparency, or scalability, privacy, and decentralization under one blockchain. What do you think personally?
I agree. One of the things that not many people know is that the founding team of Near is very, very strong on the technical grounds, and they also come from like Web 2. So Ilya co-wrote the Google TensorFlow documents. All of the early core team come from competitive programming, physics competitions. So they have a really novel approach when it comes to like software and scaling through software. There are some challenges or differences. So for instance, Ethereum is a sync environment. Near is async. So there are always trade-offs, but it is certainly innovation at a technology level that keeps drawing people in. It certainly drew me in, that scalability component and also the user experience. So once you have something that is able to scale, then the next question is, can you build something that needs a blockchain that scales?
Let's touch on decentralization a bit more, because if we're looking, for example, at Ethereum master nodes, 60 to 70% of all master nodes are being run on the cloud servers. And what about Near? Where is the whole network of validators coming from?
Yeah, so I guess decentralization has several aspects, and Vitalik's original definition of decentralization would still hold. So you need to make sure that the network is decentralized both geographically and politically. So you want the nodes to be spread around to mitigate the risk of any one server or region going down. But also you want to make sure that the actors running the nodes are not coordinating or colluding against them. So if any one of them goes offline or goes rogue, the rest can pick up the share. The one area that you do want to have shared would be the data availability. So you do want to have interoperability, all the applications can connect with each other, but the network itself is resilient to attacks. We could see the costs that users were incurring running the servers on AWS, and we could see the concerns of them, running the math of, how much could I receive from delegations and fees. Some of the experienced delegators, we've seen them transition to self-hosted and even having custom hardware. We actually know of a few service providers that are looking at offering basically a node in a box. I think we will get to the point where we will have more and more ways to enable more people to host their node of the chain, even if they're not in the active validator set, which would always give us that, what's called a fallback position, and it's something we're going to work with closely.
Alejandro, also wanted to ask, you're staying with us at the Near house. How's so far your experience?
I'm just very grateful to be there. It's been really good to meet the people that you're working with, I guess, more closely. Very nice to foster that sense of community, and I guess it just goes to show the trust that is inherent in the ecosystem. And yeah, I'd love to see more initiatives like this elsewhere in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then the team told me that it was a UI error with the decimals, and I had only withdrawn $40. It is what it is. I'm a good guy. I could have bought property in Costa Rica with all the money I thought I was stealing.